be an inspiring, great teacher. And I definitely we have to stay in touch, and you're just gonna be great. You're just gonna be great at what you do. So
teacher by day, opera singer by night.
There you go. So I wanted to end this marathon session. We started a few hours ago. We started at 10. And we've been pacing ourselves. And we were, the first 6 of the 7 little units that we're doing had to do with real particular technical stuff. But art is very seldom at its core about technical stuff. Yeah, the technique has to be there, like the foundation and all that stuff. But when it comes down to it, it really is about conveying, and inspiring people through things that are not technical in nature, right? So I really wanted to spend some time dealing with that. So much of our work together has to be building that framework of technique. But there's a little special sauce, that little extra thing, and the French call it, I know not what, the je ne sais quoi, of what enables an artist to bring people to another place, that transportation, that enhancement of life or whatever. And that comes with our interpretive chops. Now, the great artists, whether they be piano players, singers, clarinetists, trombonists, whatever, the greats have an innate, an untaught, an unteachable thing, as je ne sais, I don't know what. And I think that those of us who do this all have that. We just have to be able to find it. And a lot of it has to do with getting out of our way. And what we're talking about today is we're working on a piece by Handel. This is the Baroque era. We're talking about the 1700s. And Handel was a contemporary of Bach. So interpretively speaking, there are things that we can learn that'll actually ultimately help free us and get out of our way. In a sense, with Baroque ornamentation, if you know what you're doing, you can literally sing everything, so long as you can justify it through an emotion or through a text that the librettist and composer set. But it's not that you can't just do anything. Within a context, you can free yourself up so that you can do anything. The point is to free yourself up to try. And don't be afraid that people are going to judge you. And, Will, I can understand. You're like, oh my gosh, this video is going to be available. Well, it is going to be available. But almost the best thing that you can do for those people that are going to watch this is to musically not be afraid to fall flat in your face. And it can be funny. And, oh, well, that didn't work. That's the attitude to have. That's what's going to help people come out of their shell. Because when I tell you that when we get back to the return of the A section, you can literally sing everything. I mean, that could intimidate somebody. I know you, and I know you've had this piece for a while, and we've talked a little bit about this before. So I know that for you, it's more of an intellectual curiosity to give it a shot. And that's why I really wanted the other sections, any of the students that were demonstrating, I didn't care who did what, because they all were going to give it a shot. But this was different. This kind of had to be you because of what we're working on interpretively and in the moment. And I really appreciate you being willing to sort of stand up in front of, hundreds of viewers in the future or whatever. They're not going to judge you. If anything, they're going to be like, man, that's a really talented young guy who's trying stuff and is on the right path, right? But I get it. So I really appreciate you doing that. So without further ado, can we sing through Where'er You Walk?
Sure thing. Can you hear me good?
Yep.
Where you walk, Google shall find the glade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. Where you walk, Kugel shall fan the glade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. Where you tread, the blushing flowers shall rise, and all things flourish, and all things flourish. Where you turn your eyes, where you turn your eyes, where you turn your eyes. Where you walk, Kugel shall fan the glade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. Where you walk, Kugel shall fan the glade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade.
Good. So really good, and you're still experimenting, which is really, 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 really good. So for those who aren't familiar with this type of singing, this is Baroque music. This is from I don't know if you would call it an opera, Semele, Semele, which is the story of her relationship with the god Jupiter or Jove. And this is Jupiter, and let's see, for lack of a better way to put it, let's just put it this way. Semele has at this point turned him away and is no longer extending her favors his way. Let's just leave it at that. And he's trying to woo her back, and he's trying to romance her, right? So you have the king of the gods being said no, and he could overpower her. He's the god of lightning and all that. But he's not. He's trying to woo her and romance her, right? So your ornamentation is really good in the sense that none of it's really too aggressive. So that's nice, because he's not being aggressive here. He's being manipulative, but he's not being aggressive, right? So for those who don't know the basic choices of ornamentation, the first thing we have is called an appoggiatura, and it could be so you go, Kugel shall fan the glade. You go, Kugel shall fan the glade. So like it's leaning on, and what it does is it creates a dissonance with the bass. and we understand the resolution is coming, you would never go, cool girl shall fan like a lady. You need the right? But Will's very good when he does something like that. He doesn't zonk out the resolution because he understands that our ears know it's coming. So you don't have to point out the obvious. You know, cool girl shall fan like a lady. No, cool girl shall fan like a lady. You hear how I soften up the resolution to that dissonance? The other thing that he does tremendously well is not once, and I was looking for it. I thought he was going to do it. He didn't do it. He did right. He did not ever take away a natural dissonance that Handel gave. So, shall crowd is a seventh. He didn't change that note. He did not. So he kept the natural tension that Handel already put in there, right? A lot of times when we're learning, so we have appoggiaturas. Then we have what's called diminution, which means taking long notes and making lots of little notes that'll go around it. So you could go, shall crowd into a shade, right? And adding lots of little notes. You got to be careful about that because you might take away from a natural dissonance that the composer already put in there. So we never did any of that. That's not to say that there aren't cool things you can do with diminution. So, and all things flourish. And all things flourish. Now, we've talked about this, but remind me, why is adding diminution on the word flourish a particularly good idea? Almost a mandate, I would say. Do you remember?
It's that one Italian, I believe, word.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what the Italian word is, fioritura. Fioritura. What does fioritura mean? Literally, and what does it mean in music? Do you know?
I remember my definition that wasn't quite right. I remember flourish me thinking like to thrive, but it's along those lines.
Yeah.
It's
yeah. So fioritura literally means tiny little pieces of flower, like little flower.
Right.
Right.
Like a feather, yeah.
Right. But fioritura means lots of them. So you should, and so the relationship between the word flourish, flowering, flourish, and fioritura is so strong that it's almost like Handel saying, do something there, give me lots of little notes there. Right. And what you should know is before Handel ended up in London, he spent a good amount of time in Italy sort of learning how to write for the voice. And so he would have known the connotation between those two words, right? A lot of times in English setting can be weird. In Messiah, we get some weird text setting of the English, but I mean, that's his third language by that point, German, Italian, and English, right? So if he messes something up with the accents, that's totally cool. And like there's one in the, he goes, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible. Right, and so a lot of people change it. And the dead shall be raised incorruptible. So the incorrupt, so the accent's on what we would do. I'm a little iffy on that one. I kind of like the way it's offset. It's more interesting. But anyway, the point is he didn't speak English, but he did really well. And for the most part, his text settings are really good. And so we have diminutions, we have appoggiaturas, we can have upper and lower neighbors. We could do something where every last note of the phrase, you can do it with an appoggiatura or a neighbor. Where you walk, or walk, cool girl shall fan the glade. Just as an exercise to get more comfortable sticking those in. Try that, just even without the accompaniment. So give me a neighboring note on every last note of the phrase and no other ornamentation. Just get used to doing that.
While you walk, cool girl shall fan the glade.
Good. So now let's just work on those first two phrases. There's another thing called the slide. So if this is the, so we have B flat major. So a slide would be the next lowest chord tone for the note sound. So it would be, so if this is the chord, it's the next lowest chord tone. So it would be, so instead of where you walk, you have where you walk. Oh, sorry, I stuck that in. Forget that one for now. Where you walk, cool girls. So this time, every first note, stick a slide.
Where you walk, Kugel shall find the glade.
Now build it. What if you did slides on the first notes and neighbors on the last notes?
Okay.
Kind of fun. It's like a game.
Yeah.
Where you walk, Kugel shall find the glade.
Yeah. And that, my friends, is how to start building choices. Now, I don't think he'd be right to do all that, but pick and choose and
Right.
have choices that you can decide on the moment. You could probably sell it so that you did all that, and it would probably sound great, right? But ornamentation can get a little too busy. I say pick and choose. What does it mean to you? It might mean something completely different to me, and I would have different choices, right? But at least you're starting to build a vocabulary to be able to draw upon. Now, my one final rule for ornamentation is if you can't justify it by the emotion stated or implied in the text, then it's not going to sound right, even if you're executing it perfectly. Like what would be a justification for putting a slide on the word where?
You could almost make it like when you're like go someplace, you're like where you're kind of finding your place in the literal word where. You're finding your notes. Like
where is it lost?
Yeah.
Like it's lost. Yeah. So that's
yeah.
putting meaning to the word which isn't in the text but is in the word itself, which is a really sophisticated choice actually. So if I were doing that, I would even make it more just pure diminution. Where, like where is it? Where, something like that. Where, so that you're bringing that out. For me, I would go another way, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I actually, that's what you feel, then it's right, and it's right for you. For me, it's just the anticipation of the seduction is going to give it energy. So he's got to, where, like, I really want you, where, right? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, we're two different artists and two different points of view. And, when you're doing this kind of work, having this kind of discussion with the conductor is really important so that she or he is supportive of your emotional outlook and your choices. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Good. So I want to conclude this and this whole session and this whole marathon of events. This is our 7th of this today, and you were great to do the other one. You did too. And I can't wait for Misery to see this, by the way. It's going to be great.
Yeah, me too.
So I want you to take a minute and get in touch with how you feel about the emotion. And when you're ready, give us one final performance. And still don't be afraid to experiment like you did the first time.
Okay.
But now you have a little more solid kind of framework of how to get into this. So take a minute. I don't want you to really plan anything out. I just want you to feel. I want you to exhibit, and I want you to sort of be Jove or Jupiter, okay?
Okay.
Good.
So from the top?
Yeah.
Okay.
Get there.
Where you walk, Kugel shall find the glade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. shall crowd into a shade. Where you tread, the blushing flower shall rise, and all things flourish, and all things flourish. Where you turn your eyes, where you turn your eyes, where you turn your eyes. Where you walk, cool gale shall fan the glade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. Where you walk, cool gale shall fan the glade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. Trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade.
Overall,
So I want to conclude by saying, and Matt, I know you'll appreciate this, and you are one of mine, right? So I want, Will, you won't know this, but Matt is a student of mine from before. I never take for granted that I am privileged to do what I do for a living, and that I get to work with people like a Will or like a Matt. It keeps me feeling fresh. It makes me work harder. And the fact that a bunch of you all donated a bunch of your time today to come here so that we could learn together astonishes me, and it makes me very, very content. So Will, thank you. Matt, thank you. All the participants, thank you for coming. And what a great way to end. Will, you're really onto something here. So we're stripping it away so that you can get more to the essence of who this guy is.
Mhm.
And the results are just beautiful. I'm stunned by what you were just able to put together. Okay, great way to stop. All right, so guys, you all, anybody who wants to knows how to find me. These videos are gonna be up. I'll send links to Matt, and you can give them to your students, and I'll send it to the other choral conductors. We ended up having about 40 people participate today, in and out, which is much more than I thought was gonna be. And I'm just so glad that people are in to sort of seeing what this is about and learning and sharing their ideas. And thank everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. That is it, unless anybody wants to hang around and chat for a minute. Will, thanks so much.
and thank you. At every opportunity to learn, I try to take. I mean, and I'm so glad I could learn in front of you guys. I had so much fun. My favorite part about this song is you don't just learn the piece and just sing it. Every time is an opportunity to grow. or to change something. And, you know, at the first few times I sang, I was like, well, I don't really like that. I'm going to change it. But the beauty of this song is truly just the fact that it can change, and it's what you make of it. And
That's right.
I just love it. I had so much fun singing the song, and I had so much fun today with everything we did.
And you know what? And you notice it's not me. It's you. It's not even the teacher. It's which makes it even better, right? Right. So, and eventually you're going to see that it's even not you. It's Jupiter, right?
Yeah.
Jupiter, but it's your take on Jupiter, right? Which is the magic of it, right? So I really feel like you're onto something here, and the more I can kind of step out of the way at this point and let it grow, and do a lot of listening, not to copy, but just to hear how much freedom people can find in it, right? And that'll all help.
Will, I tell you, man, I wish I had that type of emotional risk taking when I was a freshman in school. That was, you can just tell you put your heart and soul into that performance. I know it was a virtual performance and there's a lot of, you know, X factors that contribute to fighting against you, but you prevailed over all of them. You've sparked a lot of interesting questions for my students that have been on here. So thank you all so much, Dr. Streetman, Will, all of your students. Thank you all for providing this opportunity for myself to learn more and some more pedagogical strategies in every single way. And for my students to get to hear some high caliber musicians and get to witness how the process works between, like, you know, maybe they'll pursue private lessons, they get to see this process. So thank you all so much for your time and for putting this together. This has been wonderful.
So just be in touch, and your students can, through you, find me, and I'll give them a lesson. Won't cost them a thing. You know, if they want a lesson, I'll give them a lesson. You know.
All right.
All right. Good.
Right. You take it.
And I haven't been following the chat just because I've been sort of there.
Oh, yeah.
Students.
Oh, yeah.
But if there's any questions that anybody has about anything, or something felt weird or didn't understand, I'm all about dialogue. So get me, email me. All right.